Okay, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Not that I wish to expect things, but I'm hoping the room heats up with all of the discussion, not hot air, but discussion that we are going to have in what Councillor Barton tells me is the first day of autumn. And it certainly feels a bit like that in this room today. So, welcome to everybody to the 9th meeting of the board. As always, there are some recommendations for decision, and whilst we've got formal voting arrangements are in place, we seek to move as a combined authority on consensus wherever possible. So welcome to everybody, and as you will know, this is being live streamed, so your attendance today is accepting that you may appear on that live stream. Can I just remind you that when you speak, if you would put on your microphones, please, and take them off, but switch them off when you are finished. We've already had the fire alarms this morning, so hopefully there are no further fire alarms planned today. And the usual arrangements about following fire exits, I should point out, if there is one. So, moving to get through this business as swiftly as possible, I will start by taking item 1, which is apologies. Do we have apologies for absence?
Thank you, Mayor. Apologies from Councillor Hazelgrave, who is being substituted by Councillor Dinser.
Councillor Peatfield.
And apologies from Paul Simpson. Thank you. Okay.
That's great. Thank you very much. Item 2, declarations of interest. None. Item 3 is the public participation. We've had one question from David Reid. David, I do believe you're here. Would you like to read your question out?
Bearing in mind the need for transport planning to be coordinated with land use planning, will EMCCA ensure that whenever a planning authority is producing or updating a local plan, there will be a coordinated parallel EMCCA activity to produce, update a local cycling, walking infrastructure plan covering the catchments of all the major developments specified in the local plan? B, the updated local cycling and walking infrastructure plan and the updated local plan will be published simultaneously.
Thank you very much. And in response, I'd say that we recognise the need for land use planning and transport planning to be carefully integrated. It's why EMCCA will develop a growth plan, a spatial plan and a transport plan to support integration and good decision making. Our transport team have been liaising with partners on the Greater Nottingham Strategic Plan, for example. Transport interventions that are mentioned in the local plans across our region are included in our long list investment pipeline, and the 4 constituent authorities of EMCCA produced a joint local cycling and walking infrastructure plan, the LC WIP that you refer to, in 2023, and it's helpful that this joined up approach across the 4 authorities was taken. The D2N2 LC WIP used a detailed technical analysis tool to identify, evaluate and prioritise potential cycle route improvements across the region in a consistent way. And public engagement was carried out on this plan. Refreshing the LC WIP is one work area under exploration. Improving active travel infrastructure is a key focus area for our transport strategy. Do you have a supplementary question?
If planning for the cycling infrastructure for developments, catchments lags behind planning for the developments themselves, which is what the phrase refreshing the LQIP in one work area is under explanation, seems to envisage. How will planning authorities know what Section 106 contributions to seek from developers towards the cost of the cycling infrastructure for the catchment?
At this point, I can't give you a detailed answer on that, but what I will do is ensure that my officers come back to you with a full explanation of how we plan to do that with our authorities. And we will publish that response. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on then to item 4, which is the minutes of the last meeting. Sanjay.
Thank you, Mayor. There is a slight amendment to the minutes of the last meeting in relation to the ICB item. So the words to merge should read by merging.
Okay, with that correction, are you happy to approve those? Yes, thank you very much. Moving on then to item 5 is the mayoral update. Well, it's been a whole summer since we last met, so I hope that you've managed to enjoy some rest and relaxation, preferably in the region, spending your money somewhere in one of our great locations across the East Midlands region. But before I move on to talking about some of the work that's been taking place since then, I first want to pay tribute to 2 fine public servants who have passed away in that time. Firstly, Alderman Terry Gilby, who served Chesterfield for 36 years as a borough councillor. And I pay tribute to the work that he did and the relationships that he built right across this region, which have been a lasting part of his contribution to Chesterfield and to the wider Derbyshire area. And my condolences to Councillor Gilby. And secondly, to Rob Taylor, the Chief Fire Officer of Derbyshire, who served our region since 2008, and somebody that I met with the Chief Executive only fairly recently, having taken up his new role. He was somebody that I was looking forward to working with closely, and I'm terribly sorry that it will no longer be the case. And my thoughts with his colleagues, his family and friends, who I'm sure will feel this loss terribly. I was proud to host the Mayoral Council in the East Midlands just earlier this month at the beautiful Chatsworth House. Ministers and mayors right across the country came to see us in the East Midlands. None of you will be in any doubt at all as to how wonderful an experience that was to be able to host. But I want to pay tribute to all the staff at Chatsworth House, to the Trust at Chatsworth, to our EMCCA staff who pulled out all of the stops to ensure that ministers and mayors from across the country could see what we have to offer. And I was very proud of how brilliant our team were on that occasion as well. I was also pleased to invite Mayors Andy Burnham and Oliver Coppard to join me in Buxton, along with the local Member of Parliament John Pearce, to discuss the Peak Partnership, a commitment to work together in the interests of caring for an area that benefits people in all 3 of our regions. And you'll remember that Snake Pass was the catalyst for this discussion, so transport was a key area of our discussions, but so too was the ongoing sustainability of the Peak District and its local economy. Our Sustainable Travel Ambassadors will be meeting to discuss some next steps, and I look forward to working with you on this as we turn this into a work programme on behalf of the 3 regions. In mid-August, I was pleased to join Amy, our Chief Executive, in signing the Dying to Work Charter on behalf of EMCCA, which ensures that terminally ill colleagues are treated with dignity, compassion, and are included in decisions about how they continue to work. By embodying the Charter in how we work, we'll give people peace of mind when they need it the most. And it's the kind of employer, I hope, that we will set those standards not just for ourselves, but in doing so encourage employers right across our region to adopt as well. I was also pleased to have launched a couple of other things that will benefit our communities directly. Firstly, the Mayor's Community Development Fund was launched in Gamesley a few weeks ago. This fund is an opportunity to test our commitment to both devolution and inclusive growth by investing directly into communities. And 10 areas were chosen across our region based on data showing the challenges that they have in those particular areas, the high levels of deprivation, the high levels of particular health needs as well. And I'm looking forward to working with those communities in those areas to understand how they want to shape the best use of those funds. Shortly afterwards, we launched Match My Project together with Nottinghamshire County Council, but also with the 4 constituent authorities. It's a platform which will help to connect businesses with the local projects in which they can invest, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the outcomes of that. Those of you who have followed my progress on the loop will know that I have now reached Clumber Park. So that's about 40 miles that I've done so far, and there's another section to be done this week. I'm hoping to keep up that pace, and I've certainly got the bruises in places to show for it as we head into the winter months as well. And finally, board members from Nottinghamshire County Council and Newark and Sherwood in particular will have been relieved to see the news in the last week of the A614 and the A6097 funding, which I finally confirmed last week with the Secretary of State for Transport, Heidi Alexander. People have been waiting for these improvements for a very long time, and we're hoping that the work will commence in January 2026 and start to unlock other opportunities across that area in terms of housing and commercial and jobs as well. And then finally, as we move on to item 6 today's agenda, the Inclusive Growth Commission's final report. I was really pleased to launch the report in 2 locations last week. First and foremost, at Derby College, accompanied by some truly impressive A-level politics students from the college, but also our youth committee members. And any of you who were there at that event will feel a great sense of, I think, pride and comfort in knowing that these young people are in our region and will be helping us to shape this region going forward. And then a couple of days later, we were at RSA House with a launch for many journalists, but also for the attendance of people from the departments and government as well, which was very helpful, I hope, in helping them to understand our region and what the opportunities are to work with us. So you will know how much work has gone into that report. So without further ado, I'd like to first of all hand over to Amy to introduce the next item on our agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Clare, and good morning, everybody. The Inclusive Growth Commission, as many of you remember, was established by our EMCCA board just over a year ago now in response to our collective and shared commitment to a long-term and wide-ranging regional strategy for growth, but really importantly, a strategy for inclusive growth. And as Mark presents the Commission in a few minutes, he will not only talk about how we drive growth, but actually how we ensure that growth is for the benefit of the many. The Commission, as many of you know, was chaired on our behalf by Andy Haldane and delivered in partnership with the RSA, the Royal Society of Arts. And the Commission has brought together local and national expertise across the East Midlands to help us to identify our challenges, but I think most importantly, the opportunities and the mechanisms of how we make the best of those opportunities that we all know exist. And it's been through extensive engagement that the Commission has produced its final report that we hope you will agree sets out a compelling case for change. Now, the report identifies the need for a bold and joined-up approach in tackling barriers to inclusive growth, and it also calls for faster devolution to empower our region. It sets out a series of recommendations, including the opportunity escalator, which Mark will talk to us a little bit more about, and that I know many of you have already been involved in. And I think importantly, this is a powerful analytical tool that helps us to see inclusive growth from the perspectives of our many communities and help us to shape the plans and investments across skills, employment, economic development, spatial planning, housing and transport, to name but a few. It's important to say, whilst this report has had wide-reaching engagement to make sure that we have an informed document, that this is an independent commission before you today, and EMCCA will respond formally to these findings through our inclusive growth framework and our inclusive growth plan, which will come forward to board in October. I think that's everything from me. If members could just note the recommendations of this report, which are to welcome the final report of the Inclusive Growth Commission and acknowledge its contribution to shaping the region's long-term strategy, and to note the plans for EMCCA's formal response to the Commission and findings. I think that just leaves it to me to thank firstly the RSA for their incredible and intensive work in this process, for our commissioners, including our local Commissioner, Gillian Sewell, and I'd also like to put on record our thanks to our many partners across EMCCA, to our local authority colleagues for their engagement, and to our teams within EMCCA, and particularly Damien Dacey and Michael Rich for their hard work to help bring this together. So that's it from me, Mark. The hard work now goes to you to give us a 10-minute overview of a much bigger piece.
Thanks, Amy. And a pleasure to be here. Nice to see you again. My name is Mark Lloyd. I'm Head of Policy at the RSA. If for those of you who are here in March, you might recall I presented on the interim findings back then. I'll take you through some of the detail of the Inclusive Growth Commission's report just now, and just a reminder really about what we were tasked with doing, which was to come up with a long-term and evidence-based plan for inclusive growth in the region. So our recommendations are framed accordingly in terms of those long-term ambitions. We had a set of national and local commissioners, each bringing different areas of expertise to the question. So the former Mayor of Bristol, for instance, Sarah Gordon, who is very big in sustainable finance, and local commissioners, Andy Haynes, Gillian Sewell, Keith Burnett, and Sir John Peace. What did we mean by inclusive growth? Well, we said that an inclusive growth approach was one that seeks to improve the incomes, opportunities and well-being for the widest number of people across the region as possible. And I think the word I would really emphasise out of those is opportunities. We've really looked at the ways in which you can open up opportunities to as many people in as many places, and what it means to do that in a kind of evidence-led way, and that's what lies at the heart of this opportunity escalator methodology, which I'll talk about in a second. Just a quick recap on how we got here. It's been a 12-month process, and we've done quite wide engagement throughout. So we started off with a survey of 2,000 local residents, which helped to inform our research agenda in the first instance. We've also done many workshops in different parts of the region with people from different age demographics as well, including meeting the youth committee and things like that. We've met with over 500 people during the course of the commission. That includes employers and civil society, government officials, expert and external investors. And that's alongside our own programme of research, and towards the end of the commission, we actually did some kind of quite in-depth testing of our recommendations with people across the region, a series of policy roundtables, which you may have been part of. So it's been quite an inclusive process for the Inclusive Growth Commission's work, and I think our recommendations are the stronger for it. Just to quickly situate our recommendations within the current context, and I know a lot of people will be familiar with this, but the Mayoral Strategic Authority has been asked to produce a number of different plans, which will be coming through over the next few months. And really, the local growth plan, as Amy was just saying, will be the sort of first response, as I understand it, to the Commission's work. There are a number of other plans which are related, and our recommendations speak to different elements of those. But the primary aim, I guess, of our Commission's recommendations has been to help make the local growth plan an inclusive growth plan, and so our recommendations are shaped in that way. We have recognised in the report the massive amount of opportunity that lies in the region, and I don't need to repeat all of that here, but suffice to say that the plans that are developing here can serve to spread opportunity very broadly across the region. And the key is going to be ensuring that as many people as possible have the chance to benefit from those. We, in our early work, identified that there is a huge opportunity from pursuing some of the government's top 8 growth sectors in the region, and there are numerous industrial clusters where the region already has strengths in those areas. However, only around 15% of local workers do currently work in those 8 sectors, and most of those do tend to cluster around Derby and Nottingham, which would mean that a growth plan which focused only on those sectors would be both geographically and potentially demographically skewed, as well as we know that a lot of those jobs would be graduate level jobs, which may miss a large sector of the current workforce. The second thing we noted on the way into the recommendations was that the East Midlands Combined County Authority is a naturally outward-facing region, and so for some parts of the region, for some people and places, the economic opportunities that are happening in nearby towns and cities outside of the region are going to matter at least as much as those that are happening within the region. And that's particularly true in the north, but not only there. And therefore, one of the key features of our recommendations was to look at how you can make the most of opportunities that are happening in places like Sheffield for residents within the area. Another key thing that we noted on the way into these recommendations is that access to good jobs is very patchy across the region. So what you're seeing here is a map of people's access to specialised or higher paying jobs by public transport. And within the region, you have places that are amongst the best connected nationally to highly specialised, high-paying jobs, and you have some areas which are amongst the worst connected nationally. So there is a job to be done, I guess, to help people reach those opportunities, and our recommendations are include those around the prioritisation of links to between places with high-paying jobs and other places in the region. So just to sort of frame the problem a little bit, if you will, the challenge for the Inclusive Growth Plan was to think very hard about a region which is not a typical city region geography. It's polycentric. It is sometimes outward-facing. You cannot come up with a plan which would simply be a plan to grow the city centres in a region like the East Midlands. It's diverse with a mix of urban, rural and post-industrial towns with different challenges and opportunities. There was also a key point here, which is that there are some areas of entrenched deprivation, and that has different characteristics in different parts of the region. And there is a case that there is a low skills, low pay equilibrium in some parts of the region, which really needs to be foremost in the thinking about what an inclusive growth plan means in the East Midlands. So a one-size-fits-all plan won't work, and it cannot be a plan that simply seeks to grow the city centres. And this informed our approach, which I spoke to you a little bit about at the interim report stage, which is the idea behind our proposals is to build an opportunity escalator in the region. And that means two things. It means breaking down the barriers for people being able to get on that escalator to opportunity, but also helping them to get up the escalator. And those barriers to getting on include things like health conditions and caring responsibilities, access to housing and transport, and poor social support networks. Once people are on the escalator, it's really about having accessible job opportunities that are open to graduates and non-graduates, that offer clear routes for pay progression, clear routes for learning, and can offer people flexibility and good pay and conditions. So that's the idea that lies at the heart of our approach, the opportunity escalator. And behind particularly that kind of getting up side of it, we have also built an analytical toolkit that can help to make real what it would mean to help people access good jobs, access good learning, and find ways to improve their pay and conditions. And that is the Opportunity Escalator Toolkit, which is something that the Commission has left with the Combined Authority to use in a dynamic way going forwards. What does the Opportunity Escalator Toolkit do? Well, in a nutshell, it can do a few things. It can match prospective new industries to the existing skill sets of workers in place. So you can take an area, whether that's a particular town or a particular industrial site, and look at who is in the labour market for that site, who can reach it by public transport within 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, etc. And what are the skills that they have based on their current occupations. Then you can match incoming industries to the skills of workers in those places and look at which types of jobs and occupations could help to build on people's existing skills whilst also offering them the opportunity to improve those skills and get a pay rise along the way. So it allows you to take a highly tailored approach to attracting occupations and industries that will help people move up the income scale. Then the toolkit can also help you to identify the skills gaps that need to be closed for people to move into those new jobs. And it can do that at the aggregate level, but also at a very detailed individual level. And finally, it can show you the key transport routes and the housing needs that will serve to broaden access to those new jobs. So it can show you, by way of prioritisation, how different transport links could broaden access to the widest number of people as possible. So that's the toolkit that we've used to inform some of our recommendations. And that allowed us to essentially create a sort of spatial analysis of the region to generate insights into the kinds of approaches that could be best suited to create inclusive growth in different parts of the region. And those individual strategies for these spatial zones are based on the local skills of the people in those places. They take account of the transport links that exist now, and they also provide insights into demand for affordable housing that might occur in future. I'm just going to set out some brief conclusions from those from that piece, but there's far more detailed analysis in the report that you have in front of you. So in general, what we found from our inclusive growth analysis was that traditional manufacturing and technical services industries can offer good entry routes and routes to pay progression for non-graduates to move up the income distribution, and that includes things like accounting and business support and health and education. So there's two key things I would point out here. One is that traditional manufacturing often offers higher starting salaries and also has progression routes that are open to non-graduates. And with those services industries, there are good routes between what have been traditionally non-graduate and traditionally graduate roles that don't require people to go and do a 3-year-long degree. And so those are quite important parts in a kind of industrial mix for creating inclusive growth. But of course, the Combined Authority will need to work with employers to make those routes a reality. So that includes anchor employers, but also the SME network, the NHS and schools. And we also found that connecting places within the East Midlands to deeper, more complex labour markets will help to boost income opportunities, particularly in the middle income deciles. So a practical example of that is Chesterfield and some of the surrounding towns. With stronger links into Sheffield and that city region, you see far better income mobility, particularly people moving up the middle income deciles for people in those towns. So that could be a priority for those places. So the key connections to strengthen, according to our analysis, were across the Trent Arc, and particularly from the city centres of Derby and Nottingham out to the suburbs. That will significantly improve access to the jobs in the Arc for residents of those cities. Then between Mansfield and Ashfield and sites in the Arc as well. So we found that with a faster, affordable public transport connection between Mansfield, Ashfield and some of the sites in the Arc, 3 times as many people in those towns could benefit from jobs, good paying jobs. And I'll come to this later, but the average pay boost for a worker being able to access jobs in those sites would be £6,700 per year. So this is a meaningful additional opportunity. A further point we make is for transport links west and south from the 3 clean energy supercluster sites in the north east of the region, and between the northern canal towns and Sheffield. So those were the priorities that came out in a spatial terms from our plan. So just a quick recap then, what this toolkit gets you is a highly tailored local growth plan based on the existing skills of workers in those places. It can give you insights into the skills gaps that need to be closed to inform the local skills improvement plan, and it can give you a clear basis on which to prioritise housing and transport decisions, and there's a lot of detail on all of those things in the report. But we also know that we need a wider plan for breaking down the barriers to inclusive growth. So that's why you'll also find detailed recommendations within the rest of the report on a number of different areas. And I won't dwell on those in detail today, but those include things like an expanded offer for young people in the region to improved work experience and careers guidance from a much younger age, to help to cement the ambition that exists in the region and to help people understand what opportunities are going to be available to live and work locally and to have a rewarding career. We also need a number of recommendations around how the local skills and education system would need to reform to be able to deliver this opportunity escalator model in practice. It is going to take a partnership between government, employers and local education providers, and we think the combined authority and its partners are really well placed for that. There's a set of recommendations that speak to the health system, affordable housing and building social capital in the region for social mobility. And we've also provided detailed recommendations on unlocking private investment, because we know that none of this can be delivered purely on the public purse, nor can the combined authority and government deliver this alone. So there are a number of recommendations in there around building the local coalitions, the civic coalitions that are needed to deliver this plan. I'll just talk quickly about the size of the prize for the region if some of these recommendations are delivered. So we did a range of analysis to understand what the benefits could be of delivering these recommendations, and what we found was that in the top 18 industrial sites across the region, if you can get a skills escalator approach in which helps people to move from lower paid, lower skilled work into those higher paying roles that they could access easily, then they could see a £6,700 pay boost. Similarly, some of the recommendations around reducing the cost of worker ill health could knock at least £1 billion from the £10 billion cost annually of worker ill health. A plan to strengthen the social connections of those who have the weakest networks in the region could lead to a £5,000 a year pay boost for some of those people, and closing that gap over the next 10 years could mean £1.4 billion in extra income for some of the most deprived people in the region. And closing the investment gap with just the best performing regions outside of London and the South East. So in this case, it's Cambridgeshire as the example, but closing that gap in private investment could unlock £200 billion worth of economic benefits for the region. So this was just an example of some of the huge opportunities that stand to be gained from following some of these recommendations, and that is all I will say to you today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Mark, and I think thanks again to RSA for a real in-depth piece of work and a tool that will help us in this region going forward. Comments, questions? Councillor Peakfield.
Thank you, Mayor. Absolutely welcome this final report. It's an astounding piece of work, and not only should we be proud of this regionally, but nationally, the government should be paying attention to this report, because it's the way that every growth plan should be formulated, in my opinion. I wanted to give personal thanks to the Mayor for appointing Gillian Sewell to the Commission, who I know kept the Commission's feet on the ground, which was a really, really important thing for me. There were some huge highbrow thinkers in the RSA, and we are very, very privileged to have had their knowledge and their expertise. But equally for me, it was just really, really important that somebody who was absolutely grounded in the region, understanding the economics of the poorest people in the region, and really keeping it real in terms of housing and deprivation. So my personal thanks to you, Claire, but to Gillian, and also to the YMCA Derbyshire, who actually graced the RSA with 2 days a week of Gillian's time, and so they obviously saw the importance of this report as well. And I believe that they contributed to the report in terms of the housing element of it as well. So, it's just a huge debt of thanks that we owe all of them. And I just wanted to say that having read the report, I'm really, really, really proud to see 2 of our shining lights in Derby being featured in there as shining examples. One of those is the Derby Promise, which is something that we introduced as our administration in order to provide inspiration to young people, linking businesses into education, and really providing that space for children to feel inspired and to actually understand what might be on their doorstep, because there are way too many young people who just don't see the horizon, never mind have the opportunity to understand what's over it. And that features in the aspiration and skills system reforms part of the report. And the other is Electric Daisy, which was formed by Down to Earth, which is a local sustainable green project in Derby. And that really tackles barriers between social capital and income growth. It's something that's really unique for Derby. It's edgy, but it really reaches people in a very, very different way, and brings them together over planting and growing and looking after the planet and the climate. So really, really proud that those 2 things are in there. Bigging up Derby, bigging up the region, and I wholeheartedly welcome this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Kim.
Thank you, Mayor. Same as Nadine, really. It was wonderful to be at the launch last week. I'm particularly impressed by the young people there, and I definitely came out very buoyed. The plan for me absolutely shows that we need to work together to deliver it now, and I'm very keen to ensure that the framework connects the plan to the strategies, to the initiatives that we're currently developing across our local sectors and priorities and so on. Particularly keen to include the voluntary and community sector. It was wonderful to hear about Gillian, actually, and I know how much time, everybody put time and lots of effort in, but Gillian in particular has been absolutely fantastic, and I think that voluntary and community sector and the social enterprise sector have a significant reach into communities, and a lot of those that we need to be getting onto that escalator, particularly in areas and communities that are experiencing inequality and deprivation. So I think it was just a thing from me that I'm really keen now to get out there and to start really making the plan happen and turn it into a reality for our communities.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I do welcome this report. I agree with what everybody's said. It clearly brings together local and national expertise to show that we do need a more joined-up approach to tackle all the barriers to inclusive growth. We know that our area has historically been underfunded, and I see this as a step towards unlocking our potential as a region, which will help to make the difference that we all want for the people of the EMCCA region. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it is a substantive report, and obviously acknowledge all the work that's gone into that. It's fabulous. Without putting too much of a downer on this, reading through the report, obviously, and without meaning to be parochial, the report talks about the heartlands as the Mansfield and Ashfield surrounds. It talks about the towns of Mansfield and Ashfield, which I'm not entirely sure what the people of Ashfield feel about that. And it talks about a population of 240,000, which is a combination, of course, of both Mansfield District and Ashfield. district. But that area, the Heartlands, also covers great swathes of Newark and Sherwood, of Broxtowe and of Gedlin, and that there's no mention in there. And I will also say there's therefore no mention of initiatives in my own district around biodiversity, nature restoration and tourism, which we within that Sherwood part of Newark and Sherwood are actually leading on and do contribute to the economy. So yes, I welcome this report. I do think we need to make sure that people are included in this inclusive growth report and that the people of Newark and Sherwood, Gedlin and Broxtowe are acknowledged within the report. And I suppose the other point I wanted to make was this is a substantial report, 140 odd pages or whatever it is. There's some terms in there that I'm not familiar with. I'm just starting to come to terms with the idea of what inclusive growth is. And I'm sure the people, the audience who want to read this, which is businesses, our community leaders and our communities, need to learn more about what inclusive growth is. But I'm really worried that we then start talking about terms, well, abstract describers such as opportunity escalator. I've got a good sense of what that is, but I think for a lot of people, that would sort of almost be a turn-off for people to think about that. And I think we do need people to think about what the EMCCA is doing and what this report and this study does. So all I'd say is we need to put this out in a different format, in a different way of messaging to different audiences to make sure that they can buy into this, because the inclusive growth report needs everybody in this area to buy into it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll come back and pick up some other points here. Councillor Doddy.
Thanks very much indeed. Just to echo the comprehensiveness of the report, Mark, every paper probably does need a few catchwords like opportunity escalator and inclusivity, etc. So everybody needs a few catchwords. I have to say I concentrated largely on section 5, which was breaking down the barriers between health and inactivity, and page 93, combined working with the ICB, and page 101, a unique opportunity to influence and shape neighbourhood delivery. That to get the thousands of economically inactive individuals back to work, to create the 200 billion of potential economic growth by 2035 is absolutely crucial. All the roads and rails in the world won't help if there's nobody to get on them to go to work. Bearing that in mind, the thing for me that stood out was the need for the framework of the connection between the East Midlands Combined Authority and the ability to get those people back to work, to create the very neighbourhoods that are at the centre of this. And it talks about the ICB being that link. We've worked with the ICB through the ICS, and the ICP and Health and Wellbeing boards for many years to try and bring about the preventative agenda, and they were meant to contribute 1% of their budget, some 30 million per year, in order to allow prevention to develop, and yet everybody that they work with has overspent and you never see any of that money. What I'm getting round to is that the ICB is not necessarily going to be your partner that helps you actually deliver that. There is no mention here at all of the health and wellbeing boards. There are 4 health and wellbeing boards, and they are the sort of democratic representation of the population. Those health and wellbeing boards, working through public health and through joint strategic needs assessment, understand their neighbourhoods and their areas better than anybody else possibly could. I'm going to reiterate, and although you've had 9 meetings, Claire, you haven't heard me for 9 meetings, but you have heard me for a few meetings, reiterate the fact that this inclusive growth and the movement towards improving of the economic inactivity will not be brought about by the ICB. This needs the 4 health and wellbeing boards through a properly formed committee represented on this board, reporting back on a regular basis on their neighbourhoods and on the things that are happening there. And for me, for all its positivity, Mark, there is no mention of public health, there's no mention of health and wellbeing boards, and there's no mention of the framework that would be necessary to link East Midlands Combined Authority and the work of getting those economically inactive people back, because it won't be through the doctor's surgery and the ICB, it will be through neighbourhoods, and the neighbourhoods are the health and wellbeing boards, and we need to be represented. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dinser.
Thank you, thank you, Mayor. This is my first board meeting, so I'm pleased to be here, representing Paul Hasgrave, my colleague. And this particular report, Inclusive Growth, is, as people have said before me, is a very positive step in the right direction. In terms of the focus in this, I particularly welcome the fact that strategic thinking and top-down ideas about what we need to do to improve inclusivity, grow the economy, and the important part that transport infrastructure has within that. But I'm also pleased to see that it's also looking at bottom-up, and that's always difficult to do, and it's something that needs to be focused on more, because as we go along, that can always be left behind. So I particularly welcome that, and I hope that that will be strengthened, because engagement, albeit very good in terms of what the report talks about, it needs to continue, because that bottom-up is really relevant in terms of seeing what impact this report and the ongoing recommendation and steps will take. And I think the focus on other elements of activity, be it in terms of inequality, if we want to be inclusive, you have to challenge the issues which are mentioned in this report: health, skills, housing. Some of those are in the control of this board and yourself, Mayor Clare, but others are not. And I think that partnership approach that's mentioned here, not just with the public sector and the private sector, but also between the different sectors, the NHS, other departments within government who are working locally. And those elements are identified here, and it's about how they will be progressed. I think that's going to be the challenge in terms of that partnership working, and how we get other significant players in terms of inclusion to follow what's actually very well highlighted in this. And I think just to finish, not just to overlook or not to support Councillor Peatfield's point about Gillian Sewell's contribution into this commission, and of course the youth ambition and the Derby promise. There are good ways of actually seeing how inclusivity can be enhanced.
Thank you. Councillor McEwen.
Thanks, Matt. I think for me, I think it's a useful document, sort of helpfully brings together a range of sources to sort of give us a good, clear plan in terms of sort of the developments that we need to be looking at. I think for me, there's three particular bits that sort of it helps us to give particular focus on: transport, and particularly within the bits of the document that mention sort of the peaks and dales section around some of that tourism impact. I think one of the things that we quite often forget, sort of whilst there is potential to grow that tourism sector, if we don't sort out the transport of how people are going to get there, then it's not going to end well for all of us. There are already significant problems with the elements of growth that have taken place within some of the tourism already, particularly within bits of the Peak District. The number of people that are sort of drawn to Sunset on Mam Tour from Instagram and other similar sort of social media platforms, but without sort of having the access sort of properly sorted out so they can access it in a sustainable way, I think highlights some of the challenges that we've got before us. I think in terms of skills, there's an element around the skills agenda that it needs to sort of make sure that in terms of how we look at this for the whole region, we realise the effect for sort of all parts of the region, and in some cases it may well be that we need to be looking at how well we work with partners, particularly those over the border for some patches of us, because we're never going to be able to fully develop that skills support package given where some of our people are located. And just in terms of sort of some of the deprivation work that we need to do, I think it's useful that the Mayor's Development Fund has been launched. I think we just need to look how fully that's working with all partners, particularly sort of local authorities, and make sure that sort of all partners can be fully engaged in making the most of that funding that's available and seeing what other funding it can potentially draw in to sort of make sure that both this and the future reports that are coming through on it will have the greatest impact. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Graves.
Thank you. Can I first of all wish everybody a happy Derbyshire Day today? It is Derbyshire Day.
It is Derbyshire Day.
There's a lot here in this document that we must welcome. I think it actually recognises quite a lot of underinvestment in the region. So I'd like to particularly support the recognition of industries beyond the Superstar 8. I think this will particularly help Derbyshire in terms of the SME. We have a very high proportion of SMEs in Derbyshire. I'd also like to support the leadership of the regional-wide coordination of policy and skills system. I think that's quite an important area in this document. I also want to support the linking places up to their nearest source of economic opportunity. I think this will benefit Derbyshire greatly. I do have two sort of questions, if you like, queries. With the East Midlands promise, which is based on the Derby promise, as Councillor Peatfield pointed out, could I just ask what is the substance behind this, and can EMCCA confirm that the level of commitment that sits behind this? And finally, the emerging recommendation on whole place approach to mobilising private investment, can you explain what is meant by the dedicated team for each spatial unit? Thank you.
Okay, we'll pick up on a few of these things. I've got Kath Mitchell.
I think on behalf of universities and colleges, I think we welcome this report and have probably contributed to a significant part of it. I think there is the opportunity escalator. I think when I'm looking particularly for universities from a national level, we're not perceived as working in our most disadvantaged areas, and there are still many areas, particularly in the East Midlands, that we haven't touched. We're going to be challenged by central government on that. And I suppose my bit would be, how can we work with schools, colleges and universities a bit more collaboratively through the skills approach, so that we sort of reach the most disadvantaged first rather than the advantaged first and move on. Because I think if we don't do that, we will probably not provide total assurance of inclusivity.
Thank you. Councillor Cullen.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd welcome this report. I think locally, when I was reading the report, I think the barriers and stuff are all known to us really well. I didn't read it and think, oh, I didn't think of that. I did like the word opportunity escalator and stuff, so it's new buzzwords. But I think what you've got to recognise is nobody can do this alone. We as local authorities have been trying to tackle these businesses and public and private sector. We haven't been able to crack it yet. So this isn't an easy task. I think, so there was a question about health and wellbeing boards. We've all got a part to play in this. I don't think one replaces the other. But I think what we've got to be looking at is, actually, this is a massive task. How can we bring this, together? So I'd be kind of interested in the next step. So we've kind of got a document that tells us these are the barriers, and some of them we already know that. It's the what now. And if you think about, this isn't going to fix the whole region in one piece. It's going to have to say, what are the challenges? So in Nottingham, it's low skills or no skills. So how do we actually make the jobs that are actually going to, you can apply for anything, but you got the chance of getting that job? And I think for me, the different bits of the region have got different kind of issues. So some bits you have got high skills and high jobs, but in other places you haven't. How do we connect it? So for me, I think that's going to be really important, and I'm really looking forward to that next section.
Thank you. David Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. I've been wondering whether to say anything because heresy is rarely welcomed, but I welcome the plan. The heretical bit is I probably place growth a little bit ahead of inclusion, because if you don't have the growth, you can't include anybody in it. So I'm probably at least as focused, if not more focused, on the upcoming local growth plan, because that's the deliverer, I think. We need the private sector to deliver the growth, to deliver the jobs, to give the opportunities that people deserve. So I'm hoping that we will give equal attention, if not more, to the local growth plan when it emerges soon. My slight concern is, and I understand the desire to have a thread connecting these various elements together, but we've already referred to the local growth plan as the local growth plan and the inclusive growth plan in one meeting today. That's already caused confusion among people I've spoken to. So I think getting some clarity to that, some fix to that, and getting a focus on the local growth plan, which is what I prefer, is really important.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, just to say thank you very much for all of the comments, and clearly the response of this board, in a sense, to this is the local growth plan. How are we going to take this framework and put it into the local growth plan? And that will come at the next board meeting, and continuous engagement takes place, as you are well aware, across our partners and our constituent authorities. In the meantime, there's a huge amount of work's been done on that, including our response specifically on the resourcing around that, such as with the East Midlands ambition. And there will be a specific set of actions being proposed around the East Midlands ambition, and the things that we are doing with our young people across the region. Including, I hope, an opportunity to continue to lobby the government on more powers, as has been set out in this Inclusive Growth Commission report, for mayors and combined authorities in that space that would allow us to shape better the offer that we give to young people in the region, specifically tailored around those skills. And that will also, in terms of our inclusive growth, our local growth plan, will cover some of the issues that Councillor Graves has also mentioned around the investments opportunities and the spatial plan. So I think the next answer is the next iteration of what comes back to this board in the October meeting. But I think that's very helpful, the comments and contributions that have been made to date. Mark, was there anything else specifically while you are here you wanted to pick up on?
Just to say that I think one or two of the questions might have been based on emerging recommendations rather than the final draft that went out there, and I'm happy to provide any disambiguations on that in due course.
Okay, thank you. Well, on that basis, can I therefore put to you the recommendations, which was the welcoming the final report, acknowledging its contribution to helping us to shape the region's long-term strategy, and noting the plans for our formal response with the Commission's findings coming to the board next month. We're happy to approve those recommendations. Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you to you, Mark, for your contribution. We are going to move now on to item 7, which is the EMCCA Investment Fund. Amy, would you like to take an introduction before we hand over?
I'll go straight to Tom, if I can on this one. Thank you, Claire, in the interest of time.
Thank you. My mic wasn't on. So in front of the board today, what we're looking to do with this EMCCA Investment Fund paper is to put forward a proposal to approve a twin-tracked approach for the use of our capital funding that we have within the Combined Authority. That's to look at, firstly, shorter to medium-term projects which we'll look to bring forward for funding and investment, whilst at the same time developing our longer-term strategic investment propositions, which has been worked up through various documents that we've just been speaking about, and thinking around sort of forthcoming local growth plan and the delivery that's happening there. Why we think this matters at this point in time is because we want to really be looking to shape regional economic growth, and also looking to unlock private investment off the back of investing these capital funds into the local area. As everyone within the board will know, and as the paper states, we've got sort of large-scale budgets, whether it's the £2 billion transport funds that we have within the region, We've got funds around Brownfield Housing Fund also, but this is specifically looking at the £19 million of capital investment that comes through the investment fund that we get on the 30-year deal that we have with government. We are looking to take this twin tract approach so then we can be more flexible in the way in which we utilise this fund in making sure that the investment is happening in the shorter term and actually we get moving with projects to really look at stimulating the economy in the ways that we can do through the levers that we have as a combined authority, whilst not taking our eye off the larger scale on good term strategic pipeline that we're looking to develop and see the activity take place over the next 5, 10, 15 years. With the board's agreement today, we'll continue to coordinate the work that we've been convening across the local area. We've been engaging and working in consultation with all of the local authorities across the area to see the projects that they have and the growth ambitions that they have with projects and programmes of work coming forward. And as the paper notes, we're looking at developing some thematic-based investments and thematic-based investment programmes, as well as investing into said set projects, which will be a defined investment across the region. And some of those sort of thematic investments that we're talking around are sort of looking at high street renewal, town centre programmes, but more work is needed on those as we develop them, and we'll take the criteria and look to do so back into the investment committee going forward. So what we're looking to do now is to continue to progress this work internally and look to utilise the 27th of October investment committee to take the first phase of investment projects and pipeline proposals through to them, where the investment committee, in line with the single assurance framework, will look to deliver on these projects and programmes of work. One thing we do want to emphasise is that this isn't a one-stop shop. It isn't a single sort of piece. It's about making sure that we're making investments now, and then we will continue to make them in future. The pipeline will remain open. The pipeline will remain open and for future proposals and other funding calls and propositions to come forward to us, and we'll continue to engage with a multitude of partners with regards to concepts and projects that can come forward for that investment funding, and look to pipeline and programme those throughout the coming years. So yeah, that's where the paper sits at this point in time, and we're looking for the recommendation.
Thank you. Questions, comments on the paper? Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome the twin tract approach. I think that obviously allows us to be reactive and to start unlocking projects that we all know we desperately need unlocking. And I'm going to raise, sound a bit like a broken record really, I'm going to raise the same issue that I was raising a year ago, which is about capacity. And I know a year ago we were looking at a £1 million pot to enable and help us in that capacity, because some of these timescales are quite tight. And you know, our capacity as local authorities to work on those projects is shackled somewhat. Still not really clear how that has been released, and as I understand it, it is financial support coming from EMCCA as opposed to actual bodies or anything like that. I'm not sure that it's actually being seen at the moment, or felt, should I say. So a greater understanding of how EMCCA is supporting us in capacity to be able to pull together these schemes in time, because the last thing that any of us want is to actually miss out on any of these opportunities because we just don't have the bodies able to dedicate the time to developing the projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard, would you like to come back in on any of that?
I mean, no, we can take that away in terms of the specific ask. We'll take that back in relation to the specific ask, Councillor Peatfield, but clearly EMCCA also has kind of resource constraints, particularly on the revenue side, in its ability to support the unlocking of some of these pipelines. But we can certainly, as I say, take that back.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Oh, Councillor Lilly.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually do welcome this report because EMCCA does play a pivotal role in both shaping and delivering strategic investment across the region. I think EMCCA is also providing a substantial funding across the region, and the aim is to stimulate economic growth across the whole of the region, and that will unlock many of the opportunities for the people of our region that we're all looking to achieve. I think there is something about the publicity that we put forward across the region so that people actually know what difference EMCCA is making, and because people might feel that in their lives but not necessarily know that it's EMCCA that's unlocked that funding. So perhaps we can look at something like that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I'm sure that that's an ongoing part of our communications and making sure that people understand the role of the organisation. Any other comments or questions? Are we happy, therefore, to approve the approach to the twin track development? Happy to do that? Yes? All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to move items around on the agenda. So the next item listed is Midlands Mindforge, but as you will be aware, this does include a private paper because of some commercial sensitivities. So what I plan to do is move that to the end of the agenda in the public session, and then if members indicate that they have comments or questions relating to a broader discussion that might flow into the private sector piece, the private piece, we will have to at that point exclude press and public. So I'm going to move that to the bottom to just make the organisation of the agenda a bit easier. We'll move therefore on to item 9, which is the Revenue and Capital Budget Monitoring Report, and I'll ask Richard Williams to lead on that.
Good morning. Hopefully the report is reasonably self-explanatory, and there is a number of detailed appendices to support the report. The first recommendation is to note the forecast position of the combined county authority as at Q1. So this is the position that we're forecasting as at the end of June 25, and this is the first formal board that we're able to bring this forecast to you. In terms of our revenue or day-to-day operating expenditure position, we're forecasting a slight overspend of 0.1 million, and in relation to the capital programme, we're forecasting an underspend of 18.5 million at this stage of the year. We will next report to board towards the end of the calendar year with our Q2 position. That's the position to the end of September. The report also takes the opportunity to make a number of recommended movements in funding and budgets. So, for example, it includes some movements from reserves, our earmarked reserves, to fund programmes and projects, including the work that we're doing on transport transition, moving transport operations from the constituent authorities to EMCCA. So that is a fairly significant movement, and then some movements within our reserves. So, for example, some reserves that we've inherited from the former LEP that are then being moved to our general reserves. On the capital side, I mentioned the 18.5 million underspend. So again, there's a recommendation to reprofile that, but also to make some additions to the capital programme based on some more recently announced grant funding positions that weren't known at the time that the capital programme was set in February. I'll close there, but very happy to take questions.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Councillor Carl.
Thank you for that. What are the reasons for needing to spend more on recruitment and interims than planned? Because that's made the overspend.
The 2 points are linked. As an evolving organisation, we inevitably had to rely on interim staff whilst we were building and designing our permanent structures. An interim staff typically will cost more on an equivalent basis than permanent staff, so we're still seeing that feeding through in the budget monitoring. But people who are observing us on LinkedIn will see we're making a number of key and continue to make some key appointments within the organisation and moving to what we call a path to permanence, so replacing those interim resources. So that is now working itself out of the budget, but the inevitable consequence of that is that we're having to spend more on recruitment until such time as we're able to fully build our internal recruitment capability.
But there is a plan to address this and get us back.
Very much so, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. Happy, therefore, to approve. There are a number of recommendations which relate to this report. I'm going to take them all in one. Are you happy to approve those recommendations? Great, thank you very much. Move on now to item 10, which is the Overview and Scrutiny Committee Annual Report, and I'd like to invite the Chair of Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Chris Poulter, to introduce the report which sets out the annual report for us. Councillor Poulter.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome the opportunity to come and report on the activities of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. We'd also like the opportunity to be able to report, when necessary, important recommendations that come from Overview and Scrutiny directly to the board, to be able to make sure that we get follow-up and understand the response to the recommendations in future. That would be very useful. But in terms of this report, it is there amongst the papers. It's in some considerable detail. It's the first year of Overview and Scrutiny for the first year of the Combined Authority Board. I think we've set some firm foundations within the governance and setup of the Scrutiny Committee. It's been a difficult year. There was a slow start because, unfortunately, some of the authorities didn't appoint members to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which meant we couldn't start the business of the Scrutiny Board fully by appointing a chair, for one thing, which was me, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to continue for 25-26, and I think we'll be in a better position. Resources were stretched because everybody was in development, but I welcome the appointment or the confirmation later of the appointment of a scrutiny officer, Michael Headley, which will be very useful to and improve the ability of the Scrutiny Committee to focus on what it is we need to look at going forwards. So, but in that year, in the year 24-25, we were able to carry out some effective scrutiny around the budget proposals as they developed, but we also wanted to understand the governance framework and looked at the work of the Inclusive Growth Commission. And our focus is going to be and was on pre-scrutiny, looking at strategic policies and going forwards. So, overview and scrutiny, pre-scrutiny is important to the committee. We look to make scrutiny on your own decisions, but also those of the devolved scrutiny committees which receive devolved powers and need to be scrutinised already. So, as I say, it was a difficult start, and one of the problems was those members that were appointed to the committee. And what I'd ask of the leaders here today is to ensure that when annually you look at the appointments to the combined authority, that you, as far as possible, you appoint people with experience but with interest and I'd look for some continuity in the membership of the board, so that, and also firm arrangements for substitutes. As Councillor Dins has appeared today, we need to make sure that we can be quorate at the overview and scrutiny meetings by appointing substitutes with the right ability and knowledge and experience. But so the report is what it is. It deals with everything that we were able to do, and our focus and the way that we look to be going forward. I think we built a firm foundation for going forward, and we have plans for the year to come. So we want to work hand in hand with the work of the Audit and Governance Committee, so that we don't have any duplication, but also we can be more effective, and because actually we are one scrutiny committee for the whole of the combined authority. We're not able to carry out pre-scrutiny and follow on from there for everything. The focus needs to be on identifying those issues that are brought to our attention, or we look to focus on, and doubling down on those by improving the knowledge and experience of those on the committee and their involvement. We need to develop a formal training plan for the committee, and so that we are able to create shadow appointments to the other committees and decision-making processes. And I'm confident that in the next 12 months we will be able to contribute positively to the work of the authority, but also to hold to account yourself, the committees, and adherence to the strategic plans that we have. So I'd ask you to consider receiving and accepting the report, and I look forward to seeing yourself, as you've committed to, at least 2 public sessions with ourselves, because I think the public need to see accountability, and the authority itself needs to develop a public front to take the work forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you. We're happy to receive that report, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the committee on Thursday, I believe, for the question time, which is just one of a number of opportunities that are open to public more generally for questions that we have had, whether it be through board or indeed through the transport committees. So I look forward to doing that on Thursday. Do we have any questions or comments, or happy to receive the report? Great, thank you very much. We'll move on now then to transparent decision making, and hand over to Sanjeet Saul.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide additional transparency of decisions that have been taken by the Mayor and officers outside of board meetings, exercising their delegated authority. Details of the decisions that have been taken are at paragraph 3.3 of the report, and members will note that there has been 1 officer decision and 1 member decision. Members will also note that none of the decisions taken were under the urgency provisions, and the decisions that have been taken have been published in accordance with EMCCA's publication scheme. Both of the decisions that are referenced in the report are key decisions and have therefore been subject to the call-in provisions. And with that, Mayor, I present the report to board with a recommendation to note the decisions.
Thank you. Happy to note. Yep. Thank you very much. We move on then to item 12, the appointment of Statutory Scrutiny Officer. Sanjeet.
Thank you, Mayor. This report is presented to board to seek approval for the designation of Dr Michael Edley as EMCCA's dedicated Statutory Scrutiny Officer. The board will note that the post of Statutory Scrutiny Officer is one that is required by law, and the appointment of the post holder is reserved for decision by this board. The role of Statutory Scrutiny Officer is a crucial piece of EMCCA's governance framework, and Michael is an experienced scrutiny officer. With that, Mayor, I present this report to the board with a recommendation to approve his designation so that he may be appointed as EMCCA's statutory scrutiny officer.
Thank you. Can I get confirmation that you're happy to approve the appointment of Dr. Michael Edley as our statutory scrutiny officer? Great. All agreed. Thank you very much. We're now going to move back to item 8, which is the discussion on Mindforge, and I'm going to invite Tom Goshawk to lead on this paper. Can I remind members that they have also had sight of papers in a private section which relate to commercial confidentiality. Should you wish to raise anything in relation to those papers, please indicate to me first, and we will move into a private session. Thank you. Tom.
Thank you, Chair. So in this report, we're being asked for 4 recommendations, the first of which is to approve a £2 million capital investment into Midlands Mindforge Limited. Then it will be delegate authority on any decisions relating to subsidy at this point in time. There'll also be the appointment of EMCCA's investment director to the Mindforge board, and then any subsequent minor amendments that need to take place to the business case. So Mindforge is a patient capital investment company which is backed by 8 Midlands universities from across the area. These are the Midlands Innovation Universities in the area. What this investment is looking to do is to look at underinvestment into intellectual property-rich startup companies and help to keep high-growth, high-potential firms locally in the area. They're aiming to raise a total of £250 million to invest into science and tech businesses across the region over the coming years. Further funding rounds will be supported off the back of this to unlock large-scale private investment over the next decade, but that's going to take place after the initial raise, which is what we're looking to invest in at this point in time. As I said, the project really is looking to address an issue of market failure where this type of investment doesn't reach this region of the East Midlands and the Midlands in general. It's around 6 times more likely that a company in London and the South East will get this type of investment in the first 7 years of their inception. So we're looking to help stimulate the market, prove the concept and take it forward from that point of view. If approved, we will form part of what is called a pilot raise to prove the concept, and our £2 million forms this alongside other investment from places like the West Midlands Combined Authority and the universities themselves, which sit within the Midlands Mindforge Limited idea. And post our initial pilot raise, this will look to stimulate investment straight away into businesses across the region and look to start investing to showcase the model out to the private sector, prove the concept, and then crowd in further investment across the area. Our EMCCA-nominated director will sit on the Mindforge board and oversee strategic alignment and performance and feed that back to this board and the investment committee, overseeing progress as it takes place over the years. And board will notice that this was one of the key pieces which was part of the compact which Mayor Ward signed with the West Midlands Combined Authority earlier this year, I believe. As the Chair referred to, some of the appendices seen here are excluded from the public and public consumption due to commercial sensitivities. So just to reiterate, if there's anything outside of that, if we could look to address those concerns otherwise. But yeah, so really it's looking at a £2 million investment into this is the main recommendation from the paper here.
Thank you very much, Tom. So any comments or questions? I think this is an exciting opportunity for the region. And I know that there was a considerable amount of discussion took place at the investment committee previously on this. But I think it's also an indication of the kind of things that we can do as a result of being a combined authority, and perhaps in a way in which local authorities do not have that same opportunity. And we are able to do this as well, not just as an East Midlands, but to think about how we use the power of that greater Midlands through East and West to be able to make a broader case, particularly given the extent of the universities in this region. So I'm going to come first of all, therefore, to Kath for comment.
So on behalf of the universities, we are supportive. I think there was a bit of a challenge for the University of Derby and Nottingham Trent in that we're not in the main group of these universities, and so but I worked very closely with Mindforge when they were trying to get into the East Midlands. I'm meeting with Nottingham Trent tomorrow because we do want to really form a partnership on how does some of this investment move down rather than get stuck halfway through. So we will continue to work together in working with how that comes through, because our partners aren't always Nottingham in this. For us, for the University of Derby, my partner would be more Loughborough, and so it's actually understanding how that money flows through. But I think not doing it would be to the deficit of the region rather than not. So I think we're incredibly supportive of it. Lots of opportunity, but I also think we need to look at it through the skills angle as well. So as we get these investments in, the critical piece for me will be how do we understand the skills shortages and the way in which we could work through those investments. So supportive, yeah, we just need to be clear that the 3 universities in EMCCA actually benefit from that investment.
Any other comments, questions? Yes, Councillor Rini.
I'd possibly like to ask some questions on the exempt papers once everybody else has finished, if possible.
We will. I will take any other comments now that are public. Otherwise, we'll exclude press and public, and we'll move into that as the last part. Councillor Zinzer.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm reassured by Kath Mitchell's comments and support for this paper. Just reading it, it looked to me that the main drivers for research-intensive universities was mostly the West Midlands, and 1 out of those 8 was from the East Midlands. And I think that is something we need to keep in mind, because those universities listed here are big drivers, and their reach and expanse hopefully is beyond the West Midlands, and so that we can sort of make sure that our region is not left behind. And I'm sure you'll be focused on this, but it's really important that we keep that in mind. As I say, I am reassured by Kath Mitchell's comments in supporting this for that reason. Thank you.
We'll come back and pick up a couple of the points. Councillor Peatfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I suppose I want to put in a request, really, that whoever the appointed director is, works really closely with the universities of Derby and Nottingham Trent, so that we can ensure that that director on the board is representing them and making sure that that money is being spread fairly. The other question I had was really about the pilot and whether we as a region are going to benefit from the pilot itself, or whether we're going to actually, it's going to be a while until the pilot's finished and then we start to see the benefit. Thank you.
Other comments? Councillor Khan, then I'll come to Councillor Doddy. Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to point out this is another example of the benefit of having a combined authority and having you as Mayor, because this could be an opportunity of investment that we miss a chance, because we as local authorities don't have the money to put this investment in. So it just means, when you've got other combined authorities also investing, we're a little piece in a big puzzle, but if it wasn't for a combined authority, I think we wouldn't have this opportunity, and I really welcome this.
Thank you. Councillor Doddy.
Yet a little piece in a big puzzle. I'm not really sure what the puzzle picture is when you put it all together. So really, I'm just trying to find out, are we investing in these so that we can become owners of the companies and sharing their growth? Are we doing it to create jobs? Are we doing it to create innovative centres? Are we doing it for dividends? Are we doing it for like a grant to help grow? I'm not entirely sure what the actual picture is. Thanks.
Tom, I'm going to ask you to come back and just clarify all of those before we go back in. Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm mindful that we're probably going to discuss it under confidential, as has been requested by Councillor Rini, but I think it's worth saying in the not-so-private part of this is that we need to be careful about how we invest the money. I think there's an expectation, and I think we see it most days in the press, that the money that is spent through EMCCA and through the Mayor's office, there's some kind of immediate impact. And I think an investment like this is substantial in terms of that, and that won't be kept from the public interrogation around that. And two, there's probably not going to be an overnight impact of this. This is a long-term project. So I think they're just things we need to be mindful of in terms of when we look at this and talk about this in the confidential part of the item.
Thank you. Tom, can I ask you to respond to the points that you can do at this point, and then we will move into the next section?
Yeah, so I think the first one to come back on is the even spread of 4 West, 4 East Midlands universities. So there is that spread across the region. So it's not just towards one side or the other from the universities listed within the partnership. In terms of the pilot benefits and whether we should be seen in the short term, yes, we should see some immediate impacts taking place in the region. There is a point of the larger scale benefits will come in the longer term as the investment model develops itself, but there will be some that we will be able to see an impact on fairly quickly. And then to Councillor Doddy's points around jobs and economic growth, really, and then leveraging investment is what we want to see as the product of this, rather than necessarily financial returns for the combined authority itself.
Okay, thank you. So, the committee, first of all, is requested to consider agree a resolution having been duly proposed and seconded by board members, which I'm hoping you will agree to, under section 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, press and public be excluded during the remainder of the meeting on the basis that if they were present during the business to be transacted, there be a likelihood of disclosure to them of exempt information of the following description: information relating to any individual, information relating to any consultations or negotiations or contemplated consultations or negotiations in connection with any labour relations matter arising between the authority or Minister of the Crown, employees or office holders under the authority. You are used to these terms. Essentially, these are exempt matters. Can I therefore have your approval